Some games are on your radar. Some games maybe not on your radar, but I'm about to put them on your radar. So every Thursday night around this time, we just go simple scale of 1 to 10. We name some of these games. How worried am I for the favorite? How pegged should that upset alert meter be? First game on the upset alert meter. I don't think anyone has talked about it all week. It is Iowa State at Texas. Texas most recently famous for winning some big games. Texas most recently famous for getting Quinn Ewers back. And now they're favored by over 2 touchdowns. They are favored by 16 points at home against Iowa State. This one's off your radar, and it should be. Iowa State's already got multiple losses, so for all intents and purposes, they're out of the Big 12 championship race. You've got big praise rolling in for Texas this week. They're off the Oklahoma win. They've got Oklahoma State coming up next week. And for the first time, you can feel it, even in the JP poll, we can feel it. People are starting to take them serious on the national scene. And we're going to talk later in the show about what they're capable of this year. But listen, we're so into Texas, we changed the color of the mysterious drink in the chalice. Some say it's Tennessee orange. Some say it's Texas orange. I just say it's what they had left over at Publix. But I digress. Texas is red hot right now. Iowa State, on the other hand, ice cold. Iowa State, I have it on good authority, due in large part to a tweet put out earlier today by our buddy Parker at Stats of War. Iowa State's got 9 losses since 2000. Only 2 of them have been by double digits. So they just don't lose by double digits very often. And we're asking them to lose by 17 here if Texas is going to cover. But this is about outright upsets, okay? I think that there are some scenarios out there where Iowa State hangs around kind of a sleepy game and they compress it and they hold the ball like it's theirs to own. And Texas ends up winning, but they don't win comfortably. And then all of a sudden, people talk about Quinn Ewers coming back down to earth. I could see that. What I don't think is going to happen is the outright upset. I'm going to put a 5 on this, mainly because I want Texas to be paying attention. But I don't foresee myself checking the eye, Josh, in Neyland Stadium Saturday and saying, oh my goodness, look at this. Look, there's 5 minutes to go in this game. Iowa State's got a 3-point lead. That I can't feel. Doesn't mean it wouldn't happen. I just can't feel it. So I'm going to put that one at a 5. You know what? Let's downgrade it. Let's put it at a 4. 4.5. Let's split the difference. Let's go to Bama, Tennessee. We already did the game prediction. If you want the full game prediction, that's on the YouTube channel. This is where the Every Given Saturday tour will be. Beyond ecstatically excited to be at this game when it finally means what it used to mean. So we are headed out here early in the morning, and we are going to beat the traffic as best we can by 24 hours. This one's going to be really, really fun. All right, we're talking about upsets. I picked Tennessee to win this game outright. So obviously, from the Alabama standpoint, yes, this is like an 8 or a 9 on the upset alert meter. It's certainly in play. Bama's favored by 7 right now. What do you have to deal with? You got an excellent passer in Hendon Hooker. I was listening to Nick Saban talk earlier today. He started to talk about the key for his team being the same key we've spoken about all week on this show. I've done like 437 radio hits all across the country, and I've mentioned that same word, balance, but not statistical balance. I simply mean what I think Nick Saban means. Maybe he watched the show. I don't know what he does in his free time. But what I mean by balance and what I think Saban means is they've got to be convinced that we can throw the ball on our terms. Throw the ball whenever we want to. Be willing to throw the ball whenever we want to. If Tennessee believes that, then Bama's going to put up a really big number on them. It does not shock me if Alabama scores 50 points on Tennessee Saturday if they can strike that kind of balance. It's a huge if, obviously, because of the health status and really no one knowing, including your boy here. Okay, let me be clear for my friends over on BOL. No one, including me, knows the true status of Bryce Young, at least people who are going to talk. So if we get healthy Bryce Young, that's a totally different story. If we don't get a fully healthy Bryce Young and they can't fully open up that playbook, then all of a sudden that balance starts to come into question because then Tennessee can key on the run a little bit more. We went over that. You want to see it, watch the preview video. The environment, I think, will be incredible. It is semantics when we start arguing whether Bama has or hasn't seen anything like this. It is my humble opinion that everybody on that Bama roster, sure, they've been in incredible environments. I think this will be the most incredible. Not by 10 miles, but the most incredible that they've experienced. So you got all that, and you got the questions with Bryce. I'm simply saying yes. 15 in a row, I've watched every single one of them. think this is as close on the upset alert meter as we've ever been to a 10. I'm going to put it at an 8. That's the upset alert meter. There's a game in Norman, Oklahoma this Saturday, featuring, obviously, the Oklahoma Sooners. They are hosting Kansas. A lot of you are looking at this point spread saying, hold up, what? Who died? How is this at 9? And it is true that Jalen Daniels will not play quarterback Saturday for Kansas, but even then, Jason Bean, you have seen play. It is the opinion of mine and a lot of people who have actually watched Kansas football this year that there's not this steep drop-off at the quarterback position. Sure, you want your starter in there, but this is not a situation where Lance Leipold all of a sudden breaks glass and hits a red button and they just have to start running triple option because they don't have a guy who can throw the forward pass. They've got an adequate backup quarterback. Oklahoma is lifeless. They haven't been losing games. They have been lifeless. They haven't even started to play the games. They got run by TCU. They got run by Texas. And they're favored by over a touchdown against a team that has shown a ton of life. And I think since Kansas lost last week, I think people just assume, okay, all right, now they'll go back to being Kansas. And I don't know that. I think this should be a 9.5 on the upset alert meter. If I get inspired play this week, or forget that, if I just even get play this week out of Oklahoma, sure, they should win the game. But there's a huge difference in talent roster discrepancy versus team discrepancy. I mean, it doesn't really matter what your talent roster is if it doesn't come to play. I mean that in the most literal of terms. Oklahoma has not come to play, period. That's a pejorative that people sometimes use when their teams lose. We just didn't show up. But normally it's just that you got beat. Oklahoma quite literally has not shown up to games. Does that just fix itself because it's Kansas coming into town? That in and of itself doesn't mean what it once meant. Kansas coming into town. That's like when people in the South say, well, we got Vandy this week, and then as if to say, we can just look over Vandy. That's a win. Kansas is not, we got Kansas and. No, you got Kansas this week. And for some reason, Oklahoma's favored by 9. Now, the model likes Kansas. We'll see. Tune into Friday Night Lines. I'm not adding them tonight as a best bet, but I'm saying this is a solid 9 or a 9.5 on the upset alert meter. Like this, it would shock me, to be blunt, if I were to see Oklahoma run away with this game. Now, actually, it wouldn't shock me to see Oklahoma lose outright. I'm just saying I don't think that line should be that fat. So we'll address that on Friday Night Lines, but I'm putting this at a 9 or a 9.5 on the upset alert scale. Auburn at Ole Miss. You may not be watching this game Saturday. Don't worry, I'll watch it for you, or at least I'll watch the replay. However, there may be some more going on here than you realize. Couple of things. One, I think you do have a pretty good pulse on. Brian Harsin is unlikely to be retained as the Auburn head coach. Now, what no one knows, emphasize no one, even the person who's going to make the decision, whomstever that is on the Plains, knows whether this is the final week. Does he have to lose by X number of points? Is it going to be next week? Is it going to be the bye week? Which is just a dumb conversation, but it's one that's being had. So regardless of when it happens, we don't think Brian Harsin's going to be retained. Now, the follow-up to that is, how does it impact the team's play on the field? Because they got beat pretty soundly last week against Georgia, but that's Georgia. And Georgia was in a strong bounce-back spot because they got embarrassed, even in a win, the week before against Missouri. So it's understandable. Georgia's beaten many a team soundly in Athens, many an Auburn team soundly in Athens. Second straight road game for Auburn. Can they go into Ole Miss as a little more than a 2-touchdown underdog, about 15-point underdog? Could they actually pull an upset here? It's one thing to cover. It's another thing to pull the outright upset. And the reason I have such a hard time believing it is because there's a chance this Auburn team's in free fall mode. I don't know, but it's a term we use around here because we don't like using really advanced statistical terminology, mainly because we don't understand it. But the free fall mode is when the bottom has totally fallen out for a team. At that point, no set of statistical data and analysis matters because that team is no longer that team. So there is no bottom of their barrel. Conversely, sometimes a team can be in ascension mode, and there's no ceiling on how good they can be. And we like to shy away from both of those types of teams because it's very hard to get an accurate gauge on them from a predictability and modeling standpoint. Well, in this game, Auburn could be on the short end of that stick. Auburn could be in free fall mode. If they are, Ole Miss could win 38-3. But if they're not, and this is just played heads up, the Ole Miss could win this thing 30-20. There's a 27-16 final somewhere in the cards. There are a lot of different combinations of scores here that sees Ole Miss win, maybe even comfortably, because Auburn has a tough time scoring, but Auburn's still covering. The model, for the record, has Ole Miss winning by 11. But that's the model telling you it expects Auburn to be Auburn without the whole risk of freefall mode. I'm going to put the upset alert at a 3.5. Because even if this is tight, I mean, the opportunity or opportunities for Ole Miss to just put one on the board late and Auburn's inability to run away from anyone, even if they grab a lead, it just doesn't make sense for me to really expect an upset alert here. Now, it is a noon Eastern time kickoff, 11 a.m. local there. There's not nearly as much hype behind this one as the Kentucky game. So I don't think crowd is going to be what wins this for Ole Miss. I don't think Ole Miss needs crowd to win it. Here's the other thing I'm talking about. There's a story I'll be able to tell you probably after this season, if you'll remind me, about the Ole Miss-Kentucky game. I got to save that for a cold day, not necessarily a rainy day, but a cold day in January, February. In the meantime, there's some thinking out there that Lane Kiffin may be looking around. It doesn't help when he tweets out pictures on his own Twitter account of him standing in a hallway minutes before he gave his farewell press conference at Tennessee. It doesn't help. I'm just saying. And so, since he put that kind of stuff out there, I'll tell you, I think Lane Kiffin would take the Auburn job tomorrow if he could get the Auburn job. I don't know if he's ever going to be offered the Auburn job, but I'll tell you what greatly helps. When you get Auburn to come in your backyard and you get the opportunity to embarrass them and you know the other guy's probably on his way out, if you get that opportunity and you are so inclined, if you're looking for any kind of situational, motivational edges and dynamics, there's one for you. Let's move on. Mississippi State at Kentucky. Kentucky loses one game and all of a sudden, poof, they're off everyone's radar. Well, not necessarily, because Will Levis is back this week, and that line, in turn, has come down from Mississippi State favored by 7. You heard that right. The Bulldogs were favored by 7 in Lexington, all the way down to 4. And that's about how Vegas values Will Levis. The model loves this number. Our model has this dead on the money. It has Mississippi State winning by 4, so obviously I don't have a lean on the point spread here. But I'm going to put the upset alert at an 8 because this is already supposed to be a close game, so it wouldn't even really be that big an upset. But it's that classic sort of meeting in the middle of one team being due up and another team being due down. I mean, Mississippi State is off back-to-back wins over A&M and Arkansas. You had the backup quarterback situations there. And they were at home for both of those games. Does anyone in the crowd out there remember the last time we saw the Bulldogs go on the road? Because I do. And they were at LSU, and they woefully underachieved relative to reasonable expectation, including mine. They lost 31-16. Not a great LSU team. They lost. Well, now, first time since then, we see them go back out on the road, and they're favored. They're favored in Lexington. Conversely, Kentucky's off back-to-back losses. Really desperate times now for Mark Stoops and the Cats. They get their quarterback back. They're at home, back against the wall. You got a team due down off of 2 good wins at home, but they're in an environment now on the road, and the last time we saw them there, they lost to LSU. It sounds like I'm trying to talk myself into taking Kentucky, and I'm really close to doing it, but the model is built to override my gut. So gut says Kentucky, but then again, I say Mississippi State's the most underrated team in the country, and the model says, walk away, friend, walk away, leave it alone. I'm just saying this is an 8 on the upset alert meter because the spread is 4, so why wouldn't it be an 8? Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you, but most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.